This is your Ark. Yah is magnified. Coming back with another informative video. This video is titled Child Support and the 14th Amendment. So with that being said, guys, let's get to it. Oh yeah, but before I move any further, I'd like to state for the record, I'm not a lawyer, I do not practice law, and I do not pretend to. All my videos are for informational and educational purposes only. They're all facts and all truth, nothing more, nothing less. So with that being said, guys, let's get to it. Okay, so I titled this video again, Child Support and the 14th Amendment, for the simple fact of the matter is that once the 14th Amendment was ushered in, it turned us all into slaves by the state or to the United States. Okay? People say, well, when did we become slaves? Once your mom wrote on that birth certificate and she became the informant to the state to let them know that a new vessel was born. And once she did that, they created the 14th Amendment slave, which is the birth certificate, the name, and the social security card. That's the 14th Amendment slave, guys. And because, we are considered the 14th Amendment slave, we must follow, their rules, which is their statutes and codes that they pretend to be law. Okay? So now we have the 14th Amendment right here on the screen, guys, that I want to share with you guys. The main one is the first section, section 1. But that first line is very critical. The second line is important too. Well, the second sentence is important too, but that first sentence is very important, guys. So now let's read this. It says 14th Amendment, Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdictions thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So now, once you get that birth certificate, they say that you are born in the United States, or naturalized in the United States. And that birth certificate automatically puts you underneath their jurisdiction. Okay? And they automatically call you a citizen by just being born in the United States and filling out that birth certificate, right? But let's continue to the second sentence. It says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. You notice it doesn't say rights of the citizens of the United States. You see? It says privileges or immunities. The word rights is nowhere mentioned in the 14th Amendment, Section 1, for the United States citizen. Why? Because the United States citizen doesn't really have no rights. They just have privileges. And they can take those privileges as well. Why? Because you volunteered for these privileges. Matter of fact, your parent volunteered you to be a United States citizen, because everything got to be done voluntarily. And once they volunteered you to be a slave, then now, you traded your rights for privileges. Basically saying that your parents sold your natural birthright from a man to become or a man or a woman to becoming a United States citizen, which is a slave of this United States. A fictitious entity or corporation, the straw man. That's all it is, guys. The estate. Okay? So with that being said, guys, now let's go and read what certificate is coming out of the Banking Terms Dictionary. So let's read that. Okay, so now we're coming out of the Dictionary of Banking. So now we're going to pick this up where it says certificate, so we can find out what a certificate is, or what all certificates are, guys. Now let's stroll up. Let's zoom in. Certificate. It says the document which is issued by a company. So now, if a certificate is a document issued by a company, then that means that the United States birth certificate is also issued by a company. What is the company? The United States. That's the corporation. But each state is considered their own company as well. But let's continue. It says, to a member of the company, specifying the shares or stocks held by him. It is usually signed by 2 directors, countersigned by the secretary or manager, and impressed with the company seal. Okay, guys, so that blatantly says it all. The first thing it has is issued by a company. The second thing is stock number held, right? Then the third thing is 2 signatures, and the fourth thing is company seal. So now we're going to go to a birth certificate and see if any of this applies to a birth certificate. So let's go there, guys. Okay, so as you all can see on the screen, this is a certificate of birth coming from the state of Connecticut. So now, when we read out the banking terms, they said that any certificate must have four things. The first thing it must be issued by a company. Then the second thing it will have is a stock number. And the third thing it will have is two signatures. And the fourth and final thing it should have is the company seal. So now let's, go into this document and examine it and see if does it have these four things. So let's stroll down. It says State of Connecticut Department of Public Health. That is the company. Okay, that's the company issue. So that's number one. It says issued by a company. So as you can see, that's the first thing on here is the company being issued. The next thing is a stock number. We know that they have stock numbers. Let's scroll down. It's the numbers in red. You see those three zeros, guys? It's usually way more numbers than that. When you get time, check out your own social security number. I mean, check out your own birth certificate, and you'll see that your birth certificate has sets of numbers on there, and those numbers will tell you how much the bond is worth. Okay, guys. So now, the third thing is two signatures. This one per se doesn't have two signatures. A lot of them do have two signatures, right? But this one only has one, and it's from the Register of Vital Records. So that's the only one signature. But the fourth and final thing is company seal, right? That you got to see on the left corner, it says Connecticut Charter Oak, 1788. That's a company seal. And he who transplanted still sustains, right? Now that's another company seal. So again, everything that they said should be on a certificate is on this birth certificate. So now, this lets you know that you're not dealing in the Constitution, guys. You're only dealing with contracts and banking. When you go to these courts, we all know, or we all should know, that a judge is sitting on the bench. The bench is the bank. Okay? But let's continue. Let's read with in bold, dark letters, guys. It says the seal of the state of Connecticut is affixed to certify that the above is a true copy of a record filed with the state of Connecticut Department of Public Health pursuant to the provisions of the general statutes of Connecticut. So again, Connecticut is the corporation or the company that created this document that also put its seals on it, and it has a signature from the registrar of the corporation with the stock number. So again, it further lets us know that we're not dealing with the Constitution. So once you say you are a United States citizen, you are now saying that you are a fictitious entity, the straw man, a corporation, a legal person, a dead entity, floating around in the sea of commerce. That's it, guys. That's all. So now we're dealing with contracts and banking terms. Okay. So now that I showed you all that, I got a video I want you guys to see that'll break it down a little bit more because I gotta get my day started. So now I'm gonna play that video. You guys, have a good day. If you all need my help, like and subscribe. Hit me up in my email at yahismagnified@gmail.com. Make that donation. We get the ball rolling. Until then, you all be blessed. Shalom.
The next statement may be more shocking than any previous. The fact is, the United States is not a country, but a corporation contractually created by the Constitution. Your state is a country, per the law, and your original citizenship is of that country. Our founders instituted themselves to be first and foremost citizens of their respective states. As of 1787, those states already had formed a union, and they created the Constitution for the purpose of perfecting that union in forming a national government. They did not intend that the new nation have any jurisdiction or powers over the states or their citizens that were not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. They stated this point quite clearly in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. They granted the United States exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may become the seat of the government of the United States, our District of Columbia, and to exercise authority over all places purchased by the consent of the states. And that is all. The framers further secured the rights of the people with the Ninth and Tenth Amendments in the Bill of Rights. In the Ninth, they established that the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And in the 10th, they made clear that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. The only way the federal government can have any jurisdiction beyond these constitutional clauses is by written permission or contract. Which leads us to another piece of the puzzle, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1868 following the Civil War. As barbaric as it may sound today, the black slaves prior to the conclusion of the Civil War were legally considered to be property, with none of the rights or privileges of free-born people, only duties. The money interests took advantage of America's desire to free the slaves and found a way to use the swiftly adopted post-war constitutional amendments to enslave all of the people. The deceit is in the wording of both the 13th and 14th Amendments. You will note that the 13th Amendment provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States. But why the emphasis on involuntary servitude? Isn't it the same thing as slavery? Sure it is. But they had to mention the concept of involuntary servitude because they wished to retain another type of slavery, voluntary servitude. Voluntary servitude is an ancient and established concept. It was the way serfs became subjects to their lords during feudal times in England and other European countries. It was a way for free men to earn a living at a time when all property was held by a select few, and thus anyone who wanted to farm and support their family had first to agree to be subject to a lord of the land. Our forefathers hated this concept and designed our Constitution to exclude titles of nobility, making all Americans sovereign. The 14th Amendment turned the intention of the founders on its ear by making voluntary servitude a requirement for former slaves to gain the rights already guaranteed to free-born United States citizens. When the slaves were released from their involuntary servitude following the war, their status was changed from that of being property to that of being a person. But being a person still entitled them to none of the rights associated with citizenship. So the 14th Amendment ostensibly was written to provide the former slaves with the same constitutional rights of free-born American citizens, but only if they agreed first to become subject to the jurisdiction of the corporate United States. Making oneself paramountly, that is, first subject to the jurisdiction of the laws of the United States, however, limits access to parts of the Bill of Rights, as we'll explain in a moment. But first remember, anyone who voluntarily subjects himself to the laws or jurisdiction of another is, in every way, obligated to abide by the terms of any contracts or laws established by whomever establishes the rules of the contract. In simple terms, this meant that the former slaves became subjects first to the United States, and secondly to the state in which they lived. They had no sovereignty whatsoever. This status had never existed in the United States prior to that time. The 14th Amendment created a new class of citizenship in the United States, a second-class citizenship. Up until 1868, every American was a paramount citizen of their state, and by virtue of that, also a citizen of the United States, with full individual sovereignty as guaranteed by Amendments 9 and 10 in the Bill of Rights. But so-called naturalized citizens, or 14th Amendment citizens, are paramountly subject to all laws of the United States, and, having no status as free-born citizens, have no access at all to the unenumerated rights retained for the people by Articles 9 and 10 of the Bill of Rights. That's because, in order to get any rights at all, they had to subject themselves to the jurisdiction of the corporate United States, which left them no unenumerated rights. The only rights they had were those specifically written into the Constitution. The sad tragedy of America today is that all U.S. citizens, regardless of race, are now 14th Amendment slaves due to contracts with the government of the United States through Social Security, birth certificates, driving licenses, citizenship statements, tax forms, and many other documents. The true paramount citizenship that all Americans deserve is that of their respective state, which is a sovereign citizenship. Such status would exempt them from federal and state income taxes, as well as property and inheritance taxes. This sovereign citizenship was the status held by our forefathers. Now, if you're still thinking that the U.S. government needs to have a central bank and collect income tax or it will collapse, think again. Over 2/3 of the federal government's income is derived from sources other than income tax. There is even evidence suggesting that none of your income tax is used by the government. Fees, excise taxes, tariffs, sales taxes, and other forms of income have easily supported the U.S. budget in the past and could easily support it now. We have done without a national bank for large stretches of our history, and the U.S. Treasury is perfectly capable of printing and managing a money supply. In fact, the only constitutionally sanctioned currency is backed by gold or other precious metals. This is a far more stable form of currency and is the type of money the Treasury was designed to handle. The government was doing so well collecting money under these original laws that it had amassed a huge surplus by the time this cartoon was penned 100 years later in 1887, when there still was no income tax collected at all. Up to this point, we have shown you how the money interests have 1. Established the Federal Reserve System, and 2. Exploited a second class of citizenship created by the 14th Amendment for other purposes. And we have mentioned a few names involved in the creation of the Fed. But there are other organizations working for our economic enslavement as well, along with other extremely rich and powerful international bankers. Those who support the Fed have created a global movement to centralize economic power in various puppet organizations that preach peace and stability through some variation of socialism, but act aggressively to draw nations into a web of foreign debt and servitude to their agenda. The United Nations, the World Monetary Fund, and the Council on Foreign Relations are all committed to an agenda of world domination through manipulation of economic power. The Council on Foreign Relations openly admits to being a private club, yet it is the primary recruiting post in both international banking and the federal government of the United States. Richard Nixon, Nelson Rockefeller, John Foster Dulles, Dean Rusk, Alger Hiss, Robert S. McNamara, and every president since FDR, with the exception of John Kennedy, have been members of this exclusive club where super financiers and your elected representatives can mix freely and plan the next step in the consolidation of power in a new world order.